Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Black Advancement. I'm your host / moderator, Aljaman Jasante Goodman. On the screen, I have with me today Greg Goodman, Mike Gardner, and Chidozie Chikoma.
Kuma.
Takuma, damn it! Okay, all right, I was so close. I apologize, Chidozie. I apologize. Anyway, before we get into our topic today, which is sports exploitation, I'd like to tell you a little bit what Black Advancement Incorporated is about. Black Advancement Incorporated is a nonprofit organization that looks to combat problems within the Black community through action and dialogue. Now, before we get to our topic for the day, I'm gonna give you a little front speak. The speed, the power, the agility, stamina, these are all perfect traits for one who would be looking for something within a hardworking slave or an athlete. Often, the difference between the two is as slight as the description used to define a good one. I know that seems a little dramatic, but I ask you to consider how much money is made off of the backs of Black athletes. How many jobs are dependent on the greatness of a LeBron James or a Cameron Newton? How much colleges and universities benefit from the athletic prowess of a Zion Williamson, with no guarantee of a future after within either the field or the classroom. And yet his jersey still sells for about $25 a head. Does the Black community in general believe in one of the only ways to get out of a desperation of poverty is through the biological lottery? Yes, sports is a dirty business and a dirty game, but does the exploitation of the Black athlete add to the destruction of the Black community? So with all that being said, we're gonna go right to the questions. Do you believe Black athletes are exploited? Why or why not? And I'm gonna start off with Greg.
Of course, I think Black athletes are exploited to a degree. I think all the athletes are exploited to a degree because of the amount of money that they generate for whatever franchise or league or team or whatever they play for. They don't even get. I wouldn't think that the money that a LeBron James generates, he doesn't even see a tenth of it. Speaking because that's a man who literally was the a lot of the economy for Cleveland. Like when he left town, a lot of money, jobs, and everything else left with him, just based on him being there. So for most athletes, even the ones that get paid an immense amount of money, they aren't getting nearly as much money as the owners and everything else that are there. So I would say they get exploited to a degree.
Mike.
No, absolutely. I feel like if you're talking about at the collegiate level, definitely getting exploited from the revenue from the local economy, from recruiting other Black athletes to come in, and just from ticket sales. I remember my dad bought Georgetown tickets. He only bought it because AI was playing.
Right.
So
right.
That in itself is a prime example of how athletes get exploited. Now, even if an athlete gets injured, they try to get them on the field as quick as possible, or even playing through injuries. You know what I mean? So I remember even myself, I had a torn hamstring, and coach said, "You're off the team if you can't run." Yeah. So that's a little ordeal. I ran and well.
Wait. Yo, back up. Hold on a second. So wait, he tried to make you run with a torn hamstring? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, it was really with a torn string. So, but I was still injured. You know what I mean? So it was our conference championship, and I had to run 100, and I had strained my hamstring the week previously. And I couldn't run the whole week in practice, and got treatment done. He was like, "You need to run, and if you don't run today, you're done." And I was like, "Damn!" So let me that's a scholarship. You know what I mean? I'm on scholarship, so so yeah, so definitely.
That's crazy. Chidozie.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. Definitely, they're getting exploited. I myself was similar. I went to a junior college and a 4-year school. I was scholarshiped on both ends, but my coach said something to me that I always remembered. He was like, coaches recruit players with their livelihoods on the line. It's like, I'm not recruiting you because I want you to get this education and be this whatever. Like, I need to win games. A coach is either trying to win games to maintain his job, win games to get a better job. So when they're recruiting, they're already looking at you as, this is my livelihood. So with that mentality going into it, you're not looking at this 18-year-old kid and saying, man, I really hope that I can help you develop as a man, contrary to what they always tell you.
Are you telling me that the internet and the people on TV are lying to me? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
And maybe they're embellishing the truth, but I mean, I grew up hearing it. Everyone was always saying, "Oh, student athlete. It's about being a student athlete." And then once you get in that situation, like Mike would tell you, you're like, "Oh, this is not someone that has my best interest at heart. Like, as long as I'm performing, they're cool. The moment that I don't perform, you best believe they're going to try to figure a way to get that scholarship out of your hands and put it into someone else's." So
let me ask.
Go ahead, Greg.
Okay. Let me ask y'all.
One day in practice, you and he did this. One of my old coaches, he said, "You're a student first and an athlete second." If you get what I'm saying, you're a student first, athlete second.
Right. Exactly.
You put that two up.
So let me ask both of y'all a question, man. When exactly did you guys realize that you were more so a commodity at that point, at like 18, 19? Did they basically just come out and tell you during the recruiting process, or once you got there, they were like, you guys are commodities, you're going to do this, and that'll be that? We need you to go to school just enough to be eligible. Like, when did those things start to occur in your lives?
Yeah.
Or was it like an immediate thing, or was it you kind of figured it out?
Looking back, I really think it's an immediate, just from the treatment that you get from athletics, from academics, from the community around you, from the expectation that's on you, from the recruiting trip, from when you finally get there and the older players are telling you, trying to show you the ropes, from your own personal experience, through trials and tribulations, and through everything, like everything that we talked about. It's kind of like a storybook from chapter 1 all the way up to graduation. So you see it all nonstop.
Yeah, I would agree. Our coach, it was like night and day. The conversations prior to you signing, it was like, "Oh, can't wait to have you out here. Can't wait to have you out here." Once you sign, and it's like that first individual workout, it's a completely different. That you're there to play basketball. Like,
well, how does that affect the way that you view not only him as a coach, but all the adults involved in that? Like, after, like, the switches flip like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, does that diminish trust in anybody in terms of on that level, or what does that do?
For myself personally, I had aspirations to try to play professionally after school, so it just kind of reaffirmed the business aspect that I knew it was going to be going into it. So when you understand that because again, I went from a junior college to a 4-year school, so it was a little bit different, and you see all of the competition, you see how many people are striving to get those few scholarships. You learn that it's nothing more than a business. Like, you got to look at yourself as a commodity. Those wins that you're going to get on the team and those numbers and statistics that are going to be behind it is going to dictate your ability to go to a school and get that education paid for. And the coach is not your friend. Like, if we're winning, cool, everything is happy. But again, he himself is either trying to get a better job or to keep that job. So it's just a business. To me, it's like every day was a business. You go to practice, your goal is to get better for yourself, because if you want to try to get that next level and go to that next level, this is where it starts. So, I mean, it was never anything like the nostalgia of like the student athlete playing for the school. And again, I didn't go to a Duke, Ohio State, Kansas. So, I'm not sure. That's a little bit different. We played those schools, so you got to see it kind of from a distance. But even then, it's just that hard reality, and all the players know it. Guys, no one says it because Mike, as you know, everyone keeps everything in the locker room, and what you give out is the best version of the PC, so and so. Like the coach is never going to say, "Oh yeah, I sometimes threaten to take people's scholarships," and the players know that they're not going to come out and say it, but everyone sees it. Everyone knows, like, oh, this guy not panning out. Let's try to get someone from either a high school kid or junior college or someone transferring from another school to replace this person. Yeah. So.
And as you know, I'm gonna add on to that. Now colleges, full rides, even partial scholarships, not only a year by year scenario. So there's no longer automatic 4 years. It's year by year by year by year. Wow. So you can get a scholarship your freshman year. You might have got injured, might have not performed well, might have did bad in class or whatever the situation, and they can pull your scholarship.
Yeah.
So
okay, now that I'm thoroughly depressed, I'm gonna go to the guy on the couch because this is just terrible. Guy on the couch, what do you got for question number one?
All right, question number one, do you believe Black athletes are exploited? Why or why not? TLG Senior says, by definition, exploitation is the act of unfairly taking advantage of another person because of an inferior position for one's own benefit. Athletes, especially Black athletes, from high school to college and to the professional levels, have been exploited for decades based on their ability to run faster, jump higher, or swim further than others. These qualities not only bring fame to the individual, but fortune to the sponsor organization. At the non-professional level, athletes are exploited to the extent they do not receive any financial remuneration in a multi-billion-dollar industry where the institutions/colleges make fortunes. Unfortunately, many do not graduate, and some of them lose their scholarships if they attain injury. The exploitation of athletes is systemic and will take a national effort coupled with local activism to make any substantial changes. Back to you.
Jeez, man. Yeah, so it's a good comment from the writer. And anybody have anything else to add to the comments, I should say?
I don't have anything really to add, but I would say this. I've always been an advocate of since you're going to be treated like a commodity anyway, you might as well get paid. So I've always been what LaMelo Ball did. I was a huge fan of what he did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He went straight overseas. He got his money. Then he went to the NBA. And even if he didn't go to the NBA, he still could have stayed over there and played and got his money, got all the endorsements and everything. So if you're going to be treated, as basically a commodity or just athletic slave, basically, that you might as well get all your paper and get it immediately and get it as soon as you can. Like I hate the rule that you got to go to college for at least 1 year. There's no reason for it if your whole path is already, if you already have the skill set to go where the money is, there's no need for college. College is to figure out what you're trying to do to get money. So
on that, I think that's in my personal opinion, I just think that your stipulation is like a marketing tool to brand athletes. A lot of athletes, especially in basketball and football, mainly basketball, you become a star in college, right? And then as you develop your brand in college, you take that following into the NBA. You know what I mean? You don't become a star in the NBA. A lot of stars are made in college and then go on to the NBA and become even bigger. So it's like a marketing strategy for the league to be able to say, hey, Zion Williamson, hey, such and such. You know what I mean? So now Zion's a superstar, and he balled out, dude. Now, if he had went straight to the league out of high school, would you still have that same start? I don't know.
Absolutely, because it's different now. See, back in the 80s and 90s, and even the early 2000s, you couldn't do that. Now, the internet's out there. There's highlights everywhere. And everyone will see you. Like, I've known about Zion since he was a junior.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He had a huge following before he even saw Duke. Now, other people caught on. But either way, he was going to be seen. That internet is crazy. The internet has changed the game up completely. Back in the day, you're absolutely right. But as far as now, you don't really need it. If you've got talent on that level, you don't need it. Now, some guys that are really good but not superstar good, like a solid role player dude, he still might need college for that extra branding and everything else. But I'm talking about the guys that are for anyone who is elite, you don't need college.
Let me ask the question.
If there's no B game or B plan, and the only plan is athlete, I can only say that in certain sports. Football, I don't care how good you are. You ain't going from 17 years old straight to NFL. You're going to get your head cracked. And a football player, that's a different circumstance. Basketball, tennis, any other sport, for the most part, you can slide right on in.
Let me ask a question from the perspective of, like, and this will be, pardon Greg, but this will be specifically for Chidozie and Mike.
It should be. They
well, I'm a fake athlete. I mean, I got a jersey on and everything. So anyway, but I mean, come on. I mean, what the hell? Pay for this. Anyway, no, but from this perspective of, like, the idea, let's say that you had a teammate that they knew wasn't going to go pro but was valuable to the team. How would they finesse that in terms of them going to classes and stuff? Like, in terms of them, would they finesse it like, hey, you should be taking a real major, or is it really just still about them being able to pay their mortgage?
Well, I would like to lead with that because my older brother actually had a scholarship as a football player to a 4-year school. I don't know, probably just won't say the name, but, like, a 4-year school from a major conference. And he went in there as a finance major, and his coach brought him aside and was like, no, like, what are you doing here? Like, that, how hard finance is here at this school? Because, very good school for academics purposes. Like, maybe you should just do general studies and then we'll figure out something.
Old general
later.
Studies trick.
Yeah. And he was like, and my brother was smart for all intents and purposes.
Right.
He was one of the few people on the football team that could have gotten to the school just off his academics, his grades and his SAT, all that stuff. So he was like, no, I'm going to do finance and I'll be on the dean's list in the next, by the end of the semester, and you're going to leave me alone about this. But like you were saying, it's all about winning games. And however that those players that are scholarshiped or partially all work together, the main thing is making sure they're eligible. So these guys aren't going in here really saying, oh, hey, Chidozie, we know you're not going to get drafted, but let's really get you into, finance, or so you can parlay this, or let's try to get you into engineering and maybe, give you a path to grad school through your scholarship, because we know how dedicated you are to the team. It's like, no, we'll appreciate your service. Like, you'll help us win games, and after that, that's it. Like, that's just kind of how it goes. Like, they're not, because I don't care who you are. If you're Mike Krzyzewski, if you're Izzo or any of these guys, football, basketball, start going 500 and see what the school thinks. Like, look at Calipari right now. Let him do that 2 more seasons and see if he's still going to be at Kentucky. And he's like, wait, but everyone's graduating. Like, nah, we're not worried about that.
Mike, you got anything to add to this? This is killing my Big East memories in the 80s.
I think you have to break this down into the schools that what he's talking about, like the top tier schools, the Kentucky, the basketball, the Alabama, the football, and everybody else. I think there's two sets of rules with that. I think with everybody else, they have a QPR rating where you got to have a certain GPA for the team in order for them to not get penalized. And then each year they run it up, whether as a team total, and if your team is below a threshold, you get penalized from losing scholarships and such and such. So you do have those athletes on the team that are just super smart and they are able to do the IT, the finance, the business, the harder majors. But I can promise you, the majority of the team, sociology, general studies, criminal justice, liberal arts.
Criminal justice.
You can go to any college at any level and see that.
Yeah.
But and then also on top of that is if you look at some of the finance or science majors, they have a lab or some type of extracurricular class outside of the original class.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of classes are doing practice times. So how do you plan on practicing at 3:00 and taking a class at 3:00? Which one takes precedence if you're getting a $45,000 scholarship?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? If you're getting a full ride, you're not, the coach will be like, why are you not out of practice? You think you're going to tell him, hey, I got a lab at 3:30, I can't make it? You know what I'm saying? So,
Okay, hey, just stop. Okay, I'm going to the website. www.blackadvancement.com. While you're there, you can go and look at our research section. It's one of the tabs on the website. If you feel like you're in a debate and you want to be a part of one of the debates like the one that we're having today, and you feel like you don't have a good enough background, you can go in the tab. We have several different articles linked. Also, you can go to our topic section while you're at the website. That also gives us the different topics that we discussed during our roundtables, this being one of them. Events, COVID-19 has rolled over into 2021, so it's going to be a fat chance we do any live events, but we still do some events here and there, and we can advertise them usually under the events page itself, and also on Facebook and other platforms. And the last part is the In History section, which is also another part within the website where you can go and get rare tidbits of history that they may not have taught you in your history classes. So this brings me to question number 2. Do you believe Black athletes have to be role models, particularly outside of the field of play? Why or why not? And I'm going to start this one with Mike.
I believe so. Just from the exposure that athletes get, even from, the majority of athletes that go to college, you're kind of already advanced as you grow up into little league, middle school, high school, and eventually college. You can kind of see who has the potential even at that age of the move. And those athletes are, seen through their peers as, got a little, I guess, put on a pedestal, so to speak. So everybody, all the eyes are drawn to you. And now with social media, everything is out there. And if you are, in the limelight, so to speak, and you make a slip up, you're 17, you make a 17-year-old mistake, everybody knows about it. You can go to my high school and pick that out. You probably go to any high school and pick that out. And now with social media, like I said, any misstep can be characterized. It can really hurt your brand, so to speak. So, and then, with that being said, I think that athletes should be hold themselves accountable more so than the average kid. Because you just have a following, you got eyes towards you, you're in the limelight. And if you're one of those kids that are going to those top tier schools, you're definitely in the limelight. You get interviews. I mean, there's a kid, a quarterback, in my son's league. He goes to Gonzaga, but he's was the number 1 quarterback in the country. And he's just down with Oklahoma. And everybody knows who you are. And people who don't even know you know who you are. You know what I mean? So everybody, all eyes are on you. You're in high school, you got $50,000 followers. You know what I mean? it come for the territory. So
that's crazy, man. I mean,
yeah.
Oklahoma. Anyway, Josie.
I'm gonna have to disagree. I don't think we should be, like, myself personally, I don't think we should be looking up at anyone under 40 to be a role model as we as men have gotten older. I mean, I think of my 18-year-old mind in comparison to my 35-year-old mindset now. And then when you see some of these kids that make it, most of, like, there's a reason to me why a lot of, for especially with basketball, a lot of these kids are as good as they are. Is, I mean, you're coming from very rough circumstances that are very unideal, and you have to, like, focus on this one aspect to get yourself out of your situation. And so you have a kid who is from a single parent back home, probably from a bad neighborhood, didn't grow up traveling and taking trips that weren't sports related. Like, yeah, you go and you play AAU all over the country, but you're there to play AAU. You're not the kids that just, oh, we went to, you know, Italy for a weekend or for the summer for just no reason because mom and dad wanted to go. So you have these kids that are in really stressful situations that their sports is their way out, and then they get flooded with this new life that they haven't ever seen. And it's like I I don't want to put that burden on someone 18 to have to figure out how to manage that coming from where they came from. Like, I played at Chicago State, which was my 4-year school. My second game was against Texas the year Kevin Durant was there. And you know where Kevin Durant is at PG County, and then when you see when he's at Texas and just how there's billboards from him everywhere, everyone's screaming, and it's like you have that following and people have been talking about you, but now it's not like you're getting there and everyone is just your friend. Half of the people are really just using you as a means to an end to get somewhere. So you got to navigate through all of that being 18, and then the slip ups are gonna come because everyone's young. Like, no one's, I don't know, I don't meet these people that say, oh, I was well put together at that age. So, like, it's, you know, it's gonna happen to them because the temptations are just in life. We all have them, especially if you're in college. So I wouldn't say you got to look to those kids as role models, more so, you know, just cheer them on what they're doing in the moment and hope they can continuously, you know, get themselves to that next level. Because for every LeBron James or for a Kevin Durant, you know, there's some people that it went hard left the other way. And a lot of it was just the snakes and the vultures that were around them that didn't have their best interest at heart. And again, when you're at 18, 19 years old, you don't really know any better. So when you get into that, you do that dumb thing with that person, you know, fast forward 4 years in life, you might have never even been cool with that guy. And he was only there because you were the big man on campus. And this is going to be a means to ends to get us in these parties and get us around these girls. And then you got older boosters. Like, you know, my brother played where he played. Yeah, I don't really do a lot of Facebook or live, so I don't know how this works. But like, my brother played at Wake Forest. You know, when he was there, Calvin Pace, who played a long time in the NFL, was one of their big players. I mean, you got to know that every booster and all of the yes men are trying to get at this 18, 19-year-old and influence him for their own betterment. So, you know, for you to manage all of that and still be a role model, I think it's a really tall order for someone that's that young. And, you know, it puts people in a bad situation because you don't have the ability just to be youthful and be ignorant. You know, that's what, I mean, we've all been to college. Like, you know how many people that are doing all of the dumbest things, you know, that still translates to that 18-year-old because you're still only 18, 19, you know, 20. So I don't personally think that we should be looking up to these kids as role models. I think we should be applauding their hard work and their focus and wishing them the best. But when you put that added burden on somebody who has still not really figured life out yet and probably comes from a single parent household in a bad community, you know, that's just, I think, again, that's just a lot that someone has to, you know, carry on their shoulders, and we shouldn't do that to those kids.
I know personally that in college I was a model citizen and model student.
Of
Greg,
course, of course, of course.
Greg, your turn.
I don't think that. Well, unfortunately, these kids are put in a position where they're gonna be looked up to, regardless. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna be role models to a degree. The only thing that I would say with anybody who finds themselves in this position is to try to be the best you that you can be. I mean, that's all you can be. I mean, that's all you can do, because if you're out there and you're faking, eventually the real you is going to come out. And that's when you're going to end up in some trouble. So if you're always who, you know, if you keep it 100 with yourself, even when you're in these positions, that's your best bet. Because if you're out here faking and trying to be something that you're actually not, eventually you're going to be exploited for what you really are. So the best thing you could do, I would say, for these people that are in this position is to just be the best version of themselves. Not everybody's going to be, here's a great example. A guy like Allen Iverson.
Bubba Chuck.
He was exactly who he was the entire time he was there. Love it or hate it. It didn't really hurt his fanfare or anything like that. But what would have hurt his fanfare is if he was trying to be like Mike and you turned out, you know what I'm saying? And it turns out he's a real hood dude. You know what I'm saying? He's a real dude from a real area that does real things from time to time. You know what I'm saying? And that right there is the only thing that I could even ask of these athletes, especially at this stage of my life, at this age. Only thing I can do is ask them to be themselves, because the cameras are everywhere and you're going to be exploited at some point. All they could do is try and be the best version of them. For them to go out and seek to be a role model is not the smart thing to do, because there's so many lights and there's so many people around, and there's just so much attention that you're gonna end up getting caught up in something eventually, especially if you're young, naive, especially if you're young and you've never had money before and you end up getting some money. Ain't no telling what you're gonna do. The level of wildness is uncharted at this point. You know what I'm saying? You have no idea what you're gonna do when you're 21, 22 years old, like in some cases 18, 19 years old, and someone hands you millions of dollars. I mean, the chances of, at that point, you just got to try and have the best people around you that have your best interests at heart and everything else. But as far as being a role model, I'm not sure if you should seek out to be a role model, because like it or not, at this point in your life, you're a role model regardless. Mike, you don't even have a choice in that.
Do you want to retort any of this, or let me go to the guy on the couch? I'll leave it up to you.
Say that again?
I said, do you want to retort any of the?
I would have to say, if you, what comes to mind is when I was 10, 12, 13 years old, Allen Iverson was my role model. Like that was, Allen Iverson was, with the cornrows, John Thompson, the crossing over. I mean, he was, and I know at my school, I went to Ballinger Creek, everybody was copying what Allen Iverson did.
Of course.
His style, what he wore, you know what I mean? Even with people like Marbury, you know what I mean? Them guys are role models, regardless of if they want it or not. That's just what it is. So with that being said, and people know that, you know what I mean? As far as the older people, we know that. Like we can say, now I agree with everybody's point. But at the end of the day, whether you want it or not, if you're in a position of status, or if you're in a position of an elite athlete, the kids know you. the kids will follow you. You know what I mean? That's just what it is. That's just come with it. So with that being said, how are you using that influential power that you have? And is that driven by your background? Because you can say, hey, I came from a hard area, but there's so many athletes that came from a hard area that were positive influences. and also athletes that came from a hard area that weren't bad influences. You know what I mean? So it's just how do you navigate that when you are 17, 18, 19 years old? You don't have the best people around you. You're naive. You got the status. How do I use that power? Especially if you don't have a mentor or some type of, an adult figure to kind of show you the ropes. So, I just reflect back on, my middle school years and elementary school years. I'm a big Lakers fan. Magic was the man. You know what I mean? It was Magic, AI, Marbury, Kevin Durant, and Kobe. Those were mine, and Shaq. Those were mine, and Penny. So everybody loved Penny. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah. So those were the guys that I looked up to. You know what I mean? So, and and honestly, I didn't even know how hard Allison AI had it until the documentary came out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether that was just naive on my part or just not paying attention or whatever it is. Had I had known that, he was in the streets, would that affect me? I don't know. So
I'm gonna take it to the guy on the couch. Guy on the couch, what's a good response for the second question from the website?
Question number 2, do you believe Black athletes have to be role models, particularly outside of the field of play? Why or why not? Rob says no, they don't have to be, but it would behoove them to do so because, excuse me, the advertising dollars exceed the sports salaries in most cases. Tiger Woods was making $125 million while only making about $10 million on the course. Like Tiger Woods, what people do off the field only affects advertising money. He could have still won the $10 million in the years he was a pariah for adultery. If I were him, I would have said one time, this is my personal business and I'll never comment on it. If anyone asks me again, I'll never speak to the press again. The end. Instead, he acted like a sucker and threw away good years to nurse an image. But that image was more valuable than his work ever was. To me, it's a choice. Do what you want, but reap what you sow. Back to you.
Shout out Rob. He always has butter comments.
I wanted to add something.
Go ahead.
If I could.
Yeah.
With the question, I think we're framing around college athletes being role models, correct?
It's all athletes, actually.
Oh, all athletes. Okay. Yeah, I'm taking it from more so the collegiate standpoint because when you say role model in college, from what we quote unquote student athlete and all of that, guys are taking money. Like, guys are getting gifts. Like, like if you're at one of these bigger programs, you're gonna know, like, how does this guy have a 7 Series Beamer already? Like, so to me, when we say, that's why I don't think that guys should be role models in a collegiate standpoint, because that's gonna come up. Someone like 95% of, and it's not their fault. Like, I wouldn't fault somebody who's going to make an institution millions of dollars for taking a fistful of money after a game, or taking these clothes or driving this car because they're at this school. So if we're gonna say these guys are gonna be role models from a college standpoint, if you peel behind the curtain, you're gonna see that all of your favorite guys are doing things that, quote unquote, someone who would be a role model shouldn't be doing.
Well, I mean, I think if I can interject my own opinion here real quick, like I think that it is a case where people should be able to be themselves. It shouldn't be so difficult for people to be themselves. But I mean, once you're put on a platform like that, you're gonna be looked up to by kids. Like once they start putting you on cereal boxes and posters, and you like we were saying, nowadays you got followers. Like you could have 50,000 followers, like you were saying, like in high school, like a kid in high school. I don't think I have 50 friends at this point. I mean, you guys are anyway, but yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get so personal. But long story short, I mean, like, that's just a lot it's too many eyes to not be, and it's unfortunate because it seems very suffocating, at least from a distance it does.
Yeah. But like Rob was talking about, a guy like Tiger Woods. I mean, if Tiger Woods would have kept it 100 his entire career, then that story doesn't really affect them like that.
That's a little
It just
dicey,
would have been like, Tiger, he likes getting strange. And it just,
I think that's a little dicey.
That's all it would have been.
It's a little dicey.
Like, Tiger, he can't keep it in his pants. That's always been wild like that. But instead, the image he built for himself, trying to be a role model, trying to be something that he wasn't, it came back and bit him. So all that stuff is not worth it at the end. In fact, he probably lost more money than he could even count. He still got a couple $100 million.
I know he had to give his wife a couple $100 million.
Exactly. But like I said, those endorsements and everything else, if they would have known, if he would have been honest the whole time, it still would have been a big deal, but not like that.
I think it's too big of a deal anyway.
Like if Dennis Rodman cheats on his wife, no one cares. No one cares. They were like, oh, that's just Dennis.
That's fair. But at the same time, I think that I think that they overblew that anyway. And you might say it's because he was trying to be this image, but you can't.
Yeah, that's exactly why it happened.
You can't
because he was trying to do that.
But you can't ask these people to be one thing and give them all the endorsements because they're that, and then when they turn out not to be that, be like, oh, shame on you. It's like you can't have it both ways for the media. At least to me, you can.
No, you can, because they're in control. That's exactly how they can have it. They're in control of all this. That's why it's best just to be yourself. Like I said,
I feel bad for Tiger though. Like no, I mean, you're a millionaire guy in the prime of your life and you stay fit and you happen to have women after you. Like, I don't know. It's like they made it seem like he was punching babies on Sundays.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Rosie.
And they did that because of the image that he put out there. Like I said,
it's the Pee Wee Herman effect, right? It's the Pee Wee Herman effect.
Pee Wee Herman effect.
Okay.
You can't have a kid show and then go to adult movies. You can't do it. It's just it don't fit. It don't fit the mold.
So it's half price on Wednesdays.
Yeah, exactly. I thought I was the only guy that went on Wednesdays.
Yeah, and who can turn down that kind of deal? You know what I'm saying? They got Jergens at every seat. What you think was going to happen doing it there? I think what gave Pee Wee away though, he was making like a bunch of Pee Wee noises when he was doing it.
Okay, this has gone off topic. This has gone off the rails. I'm gonna go back to the website, which is www.blackfacts.com. Then when you're there, you can also look at things like our debates tab. And in the debates tab, you can look at different debates that we've had throughout the years, different roundtables, different symposiums, similar to this one. Also, you can go to another tab that we really like to promote, actually. It goes towards Black-owned businesses, because it's one of the things that we like to do is promote other Black-owned businesses. And under that is our BA recommended website tab within our website. And today we're going to highlight one called Herbs Day. They also have videos on YouTube, the Herbs Day, where they go over different products for different life. People who are trying to live a more balanced and healthy life in terms of both physically and mentally and spiritually and every which way. So you should check that Black-owned business out. Our book of the month, which is also something that we keep track of this month. It's for this, I should say, for this roundtable, the one that we're going to highlight is Spectacle, the Astonishing Life of Otto Binga by Pamela Newkirk. With all that being said, we're going to go on to the third and final question, which is, should we petition great Black high school athletes to go to historically Black colleges and universities? Full disclosure, I went to Hampton University. Chidozie, go.
I would say that, and as someone who has a son who I would want him to go to HBCU, I went to Chicago State. They're not technically an HBCU, but it's been 99% Black since 1840, so whatever that is. But I would say you have to sell it to the kids more. Like I see a lot of, and I've heard a lot of people say the Black kids should just have the idea of wanting to go to these schools. But as someone who went to, again, a small Division I, but played these other schools, if I would have been a better talent, there's just no way. Like you couldn't sell me Hampton or Howard over, Duke or UNC. especially if I'm coming from an area where I'm trying to get my mom and my family out of this impoverished situation. I need the best tools at my disposal. I need the best trainers, because as an athlete, you could have a bad trainer and an injury that could have taken 2 weeks, could have taken 6 weeks, or, you know, a surgery that should have been done, you know, before the season starts, doesn't get done. And, you know, the margin of error, and there's a lot of guys that had a lot of talent, and then that injury dropped their stock, you know, exponentially. And so there's always those stories. So for the HBCUs, I would say they have to really, if you're going to try to get a Zion, if you're going to try to get, you know, a James Weissman, if you're really going to recruit these players, you got to know what the competition is, and you got to really invest in your facilities, your trainers, your meals, because it's different. And you can't expect a kid that is banking on his athletic performance to take cut rate, you know, materials. Like if you were trying to be a neurosurgeon, you're not going to go to the school that says, hey, we really will have people that look like you, but our equipment is going to be second and third generation. Like the margin of error is too slim. I need the best of the best all the time. So it has to start with the HBCUs saying that we are actively going to be putting money into our athletic departments, into our resources, into our trainers, into our nutritionists, so we can rival these other schools. Because the idea of just going to Hampton or going to Howard or Grambling or any of these schools and saying, hey, you know, this is going to be great for the university, you know, the university also has to look at you and say, okay, this is $25 million a year while this guy is here. Like, I got to make sure that those facilities translate for him. So before we have the conversation from the athletic standpoint, from the player, the schools have to address where they're lacking, and they have to, like, you just have to put the money and the resources. Otherwise, you know, you're asking people to take that gamble on their lives and on millions of dollars, and it possibly not shaking out because, you know, again, your facilities were not where they should have been.
Greg, it's very. I disagree with everything you said, Chidozie. By the way, just, you know, I'm not biased. I'm not biased. I'm just telling you how I feel. Go ahead, Greg.
It would be great if they did, but just like Chidozie said, the facilities and everything else are not up to par with the schools that are, you know, the big giant schools that you see on television and all that. Where this would start, in order to get Black students to start going to HBCUs, it would take a financial push from the Black community. And by Black community, I mean Black people that really have money, like P. Diddy and all these other guys that have a huge bank account. They would have to be the ones to start bankrolling and investing in these schools to get them to where they'd want to be. It would have to be a bunch of prominent Black men and women to invest in these schools, to get the facilities right, to get these kids to want to go there. And once they wanted to, you know, and once they got there, it would be expected that they would have the same facilities, or at least not too far behind Duke University or Kentucky or UNC or something like that. Because there's all kinds of entertainers that have invested in other schools. Like Dr. Dre put a whole lot of money in, USC?
Yeah.
And you know, I know Big Boy from Outkast, his son went to Oregon to play football. So I know he's writing big checks to Oregon because his son is there. But in order for HBCUs to thrive, you're going to need the Black community. And I'm not just trying to put all this on these superstars and these guys with all the money. I'm just saying that they have the most to contribute if we wanted something like this to happen. In order for this to happen, Black people as a whole have to be on one accord to try and make this happen, to make these kids want to go to these schools. You know what I'm saying? And you know, just based on the tradition, they should be wanting to try and hold it down because of, I mean, without a lot of these schools, a lot of people that we all look up to and admire on a academic level, outside of the athletes, have gone to these great schools. A lot of prominent doctors, lawyers, and everything else.
Vice president.
Yeah, the vice president, Kamala Harris, you know what I'm saying, have gone to these schools. So in order for us to get Black athletes to want to go to Black schools, we're going to have to get some Black money behind it. You know what I'm saying? To get the facilities up to par to compete with these other schools. Because even if they are elite athletically going there, it's still not going to be the same. They're still not going to have all the same trainers, nutrition, all those things take into effect, especially when you get to those levels. Every little bit helps. There's always, you know, a little bit of edge when you got the best things. So raw talent can't just take you to the Final Four. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes behind all that. You know what I'm saying? But that's what needs to happen. If you want people to go to HBCUs, you're gonna have to get people to invest at HBCUs. And once you invest in it, kids will show up. Once you get a real facility, kids will show up.
This whole thing has been very depressing. Mike, can you please set these guys straight? Be on my side.
Unfortunately, I can't.
What's going on here?
So, like, for example, I literally had the conversation with my brother last night, actually. And he was just telling me some of the stories that he had. And he went to Morgan for the first 2 years, Morgan State. And play football. And for example, at Morgan, from his account, their strength coach was a volunteer strength coach. The strength coach at majority of the schools across the country are hired strength coaches, and then they have a kinesiology program or some type of athletic performance major where the student go in and they internship through the different teams. That's usually the setup. Or at Morgan, they don't have that. So the strength coach, was a UPS driver, full time. And then after he got off work, he would go over to the football team and then do some random workout. So that in itself is.
Yo, them boxes ain't gonna move themselves, Mike.
Like what?
The
like
really? Gonna move themselves.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Do that, Mike. You gotta be strong. You gotta be strong to do that, Mike.
No, how do you not have a full-time strength coach? You know what I mean? Like, and so, and then I remember going when I was transferring out of Towson. I had certain requirements for what I wanted, and Coach Merritt out of Howard was like, "Hey, Mike, you know, come on, run with us. I had you full ride." And I'm like, "In track, you have an indoor season, right. And doing indoor through the month of the winter time. It's cold outside. I ain't trying to be running outside. So where's your indoor facility? Because guess what? Mason has one. You know, I don't want to be running in 20-degree weather. And no. So why would I want to go to a team that doesn't have what I need to be great versus a team that does have what I need to be great? You know what I'm saying? And then if you're walking into a facility that doesn't have ample equipment or doesn't have, when you're getting some clothes, you're getting some 100% cotton, you know, Champion. Well, back then Champion was whack, but now Champion's hot. But now you get some Champion clothes with pressed on lettering versus Nike and Under Armour gear. You know, and kids see that. You know, you're getting 5 shirts versus 1 shirt, or you're going into the sports arena and you're seeing $50,000 stadium seats versus something that looked like a, you know, high school in the hood. So how do you compete against that? You know what I mean? So if I'm a star recruit, you know, yeah, Hampton's great because of the facility. I mean, because of the tradition. Howard's great because, you know, it's the Black Mecca or whatever. But have you seen the facilities? Have you seen what they practice on? You practice on dirt fields. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a 5-star recruit. I'm a 4-star recruit. I'm a 3-star recruit. Do I want to go to a school and be, you know, have an athletic trainer who's a volunteer, or have an athletic trainer who's a professional? And that's what he does 24/7. Because as you said here, you know, if you have an injury, your trainer plays a big part in if you're getting back on the field, or if you're getting back on the field 2, 3, 4, or if you're even redshirting for the year. You know what I mean? So that plays a big part. And without the investment on the money, no matter how it's acquired behind that, you're forever going to be behind. And you might get a athlete who's quote unquote woke, or who parents went to that school, or a transfer athlete that came in that didn't have success at a major college. You might get one of those. But to consistently pull the big name college, the big name recruits, you have to have your facilities in check. You got to have your administration in check. You got to have all the pieces in play. Like you can't have, you cannot not have your academic coordinator be in the building. You have to have academic coordinator. You have to have somebody doing your compliance. You got to have somebody doing your strength training and nutrition. You got to have an equipment manager. You got to have all these pieces in place before you can say, I want to get, the best of the best. So the best of the best are going to places where those things are established. So with that being said, I would like for athletes to at least consider it, but to force them to go, me being an athlete myself and seeing the different facilities that I've been to through the different schools, there's no way you can tell me or force me to go to a school that doesn't have what I need versus a school that has everything I need. I'm going to the school that has everything I need.
Look, there will be no more HBCU slander on my watch, sucker. Let's go to the go on the couch. What you got?
All right, question number 3. Should we petition great Black high school athletes to go to historically Black colleges and universities? Smallwood Worldwide says yes. The power is with the athlete. Imagine if Grant Hill had gone to Hampton University, or if the UNLV running rebel squad with Stacey Augmon and Larry Johnson were at Howard. The ESPN coverage would have no choice but to follow the stars. This would increase the dollars at HBCUs and lead to better training facilities, coaches, and general quality of life. Stop making PWIs wealthy and bring that money back home. Of course, go to whatever school you wish, but I've had this conversation as part of a forum with prominent folks in the sports industry. And surprise, Black professionals you see on TV support this measure, just not openly on TV. Another discussion for another day. Back to you.
Wow, that guy was brilliant. I don't know if you guys were listening or not. You know what I'm saying? But how do you guys feel about it? Go ahead, Judson.
I would add to that. Yeah, they talk about Grant Hill or all of these, these players that were great players, but again, you don't say that Grant Hill had 24-hour access to a gym facility, and there were 2 guys that would rebound for him at 2:00 in the morning, and that his diet consisted of like all organic, lean meats and tunas, and they were monitoring his caloric intake, weighing him out every 2 weeks. There were trainers just there to stretch him, and then there were people that were making sure that not necessarily Grant Hill, but if you were struggling with your academics, they were going to help you, get the grades that you needed to get to. So it's kind of like a cart before the horse thing. Like the facilities have to be the first thing. You can't, because again, I went to Chicago State, and my junior year we had like the 9th hardest schedule in the country because we played all guaranteed games. Like everything was like Texas, Indiana, Michigan State, DePaul, Cal. All of these, and these were teams that year that all had like NBA guys that were there. So like Eric Gordon was at Indiana, Durant was at Texas. George Hill was at IUPUI that year. And the schools are getting at least $250,000 Chicago State's getting at least $250,000 to go there and lose.
Yeah.
So when you
that's a whole other discussion.
We do that all the time. Black colleges do that. Yo, Alabama plays a Black college every year, so they can get the head busted in. Like that's a real thing.
And we were that team, so it was like every other game we were going where? We're playing. Oh man. So it's not. I mean, nice plane ride, good hotels, but they pay you to bust your head open and then send you on your way. And with that being said, it was still difficult to get extra stuff from the school. Like Mike, you were talking about, you know, it's one thing to have like 2 or 3 practice jerseys, but I want 10. Why is it a big deal that I'm getting 10 and you're telling me you're giving me a $20,000 scholarship, but between a roster of 11, if we're making a minimum of 200,000, you know, I can do the math once you talk about 15, 20 guaranteed games in a season, and you say that you gave me $18,000 or $20,000 in a scholarship and $2,000 worth of apparel. You know, if you're going to be one of these players that's good, like again, they know it. They're not gonna. You can't get Zion to go to Hampton and say, "Yeah, we got five pairs of shoes for you." Greg, when you were talking about Big Boy and his son going to Oregon, I mean, you got a different jersey every single game.
Like and you get all the shoes too. This Oregon got money.
Oregon is Nike. I mean, Phil Knight is up there.
But some of these schools, like you go to Duke, you get as many shoes as you want. Just go to the trainer and grab your size. Like there's no question. So like they got to be honest about what the competition is as far as getting these guys to these schools, and also giving credit to how difficult it is to be an athlete. Everyone says, oh, you just shoot a ball or you're just you're just running fast, but and Mike, as you know, like the margin of error from winning to 8th place in track, depending on the race, could be just a matter of tenths of a second. From world class to, hey, you're going to be in the real world after these 4 years, could be just, the margin is so slim. And guys know that. And like people see it. So you can't try to tell somebody that come here, you're going to get the Black experience and we're going to help you, but then at the same time say we're not going to give you the tools to go to war with what you're going to face.
So full disclosure, like I said, I went to Hampton. In the year that I went to Hampton, one of the years I should say I went to Hampton. The reason why this question popped out to me so much, and I had really been discussing this ever since, was because of the team that we had. I should say teams that we had, but this one team in particular, most people know them for when they beat Iowa State, like in the tournament that year. It was the 15-2, the one where they hold the coach up like this, and shout out to Tommy Adams and Marseille Brown. But I mean, but that team was good like all year. Like they shouldn't have been seeded at 15. Like in my opinion, like I had watched them all year. Like I've gone to every game, and them dudes didn't lose. Like after the first 2 or 3 games, they didn't lose the rest of the year, and they were killing teams. I'm talking about killing them. And a lot of people will say, "Well, you were playing Dell State, you were playing Morgan State, you were playing Howard, and they would just kind of dismiss it." But it was like these guys. We had some transfers from other places. We had a pipeline to Ohio. We had some good players out of Ohio and stuff like that, and we had some transfers from like Marseille Brown was from Richmond. Had a dude who came up from Clemson. So on and so forth. Anyway, long story short, it had dawned on me, at least to me, and we can get into the unfairness of how those tournaments are laid out and all that stuff. I'm sure that y'all can talk on that a little bit better than I can from my standpoint. But it was clear to me like people weren't watching these games, and it was like if we were to get on, because Hampton got kind of on a run for basketball. I feel like if we were able to take it over the top a couple more minutes, then we would have been a couple more years, we would have been able to reach that level where we would have been nationally known like that. And people would have just nationally, kind of like a Gonzaga or something like that. But, things kind of fell apart. But I say all that to say, like, I do believe that if we had the athletes go there, I know that I have to concede the facilities are never going to be like Nebraska's facilities or USC's facilities. They'll never be that. But I mean, I think that for the overall person, of course, I don't think there's a better. I mean, I'm very biased. I don't need to go into this anymore. I don't need to talk about this anymore. But does anyone else have?
No, but like for you going to Hampton.
Yeah.
If you were to go to Hampton and you knew for a fact, like, okay, we only have access to 50% of the literature that's out there, like all of the books, all of the essays, we only have about 50% of that. So, you know, what you want to do, like we want to help you, but know that we can only give you about 50% of the material that all these other schools might have. And then once you graduate, you're in the workforce, and they also know that we only have 50% of the materials.
Well,
so
I don't see. That's not necessarily completely accurate.
What was your major in college?
Huh?
What was your major in college?
It's history. But
History.
we also,
All right, so what if Hampton history was only from, I don't know, 1800 to 1895? That's all you studied.
well,
But
I
you're
mean,
missing
there's
from
people who
1900 all the way up to now. You don't have that part.
Programs where it's only a certain thing. Like there was somebody when I entered a essay contest, this lady's essay was about witches. I was like, who the hell cares about witches? Anyway, it's not the point. Point is that like people specialize in certain things anyway. Like I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, like you have programs where, and this doesn't work this way in athletics, I'll admit that. But if we're going to talk about from academics, you do have programs where you can have like loaner libraries. Like for instance, if you went to,
we didn't have library.
Huh? No, we had libraries anyway. But I'm saying like,
no, but if you didn't have a library.
Well, you can't have a university without a library.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
But that's not realistic, though. That's not. You have to have a library. Even if it's small, you have to have a library.
What if you don't? What if your classroom had mold in it? Like, let's be honest. What if you had all these?
Everybody knows mold is good for your lungs. That's number one. Number two. Let me finish. No, I like Greg. I like Greg interject. Go ahead, Greg.
What if your classroom was cold all the time? What if your teacher didn't show up half the time? What if you didn't have a teacher for your class or a volunteer teacher that, you know,
I mean, you're
saying the UPS driver, it came to you
all HBCUs level and all these
the same level.
They're not all on the same level.
No, but
they're not all Mr. Professors. So does it professor in this context?
I think what Mike is trying to get at here.
Huh?
I think what Mike is trying to get at here is like, as far as like that one school having a UPS driver be the strength coach.
There will be no like the UPS driver on this.
That's like your history teacher having a teacher's assistant that's a homeless dude with a library card. Like it's not quite the same. Oh, sure, he's got the books and such, but it's a homeless dude with a library card. Not nearly as sexy, buddy. It's just not gonna. It's not gonna cut the mustard for kids.
My retort: Goodwill Hunting, sir.
Well, let's be honest. If you're a student, right, and you know that your classrooms are cold, you don't have qualified professors, you don't have the materials, you just don't have. Chances are you're not going to go to that school. You'll go to a school that can provide you that learning experience.
But how do you? Because my thing is this, right? You go into these other schools, and it's kind of like what the writer said. You're enriching these other schools for them to just continuously build up this lead. How is it that we can from an athletic standpoint for the HBCUs, how is it that they can close that gap if people continuously make the choice?
Acknowledge that it is that these kids are bringing huge amounts of value to the school, and you know, act accordingly. Like I don't think that it's far. Yes, you might not have the space of an Ohio State to say we're going to have 3 different fields.
Correct. Yeah.
You know? But the field that we do have is going to rival any one of the top programs because we know how valuable winning these games are and how lucrative these television contracts are. So you have to approach it from that standpoint to the athlete, because especially the guys that are elite. I mean, and Texas do, that's one thing, but I mean, I played at Oral Roberts, great, like amazing facilities. Some places that you might not have never heard of. The boosters know that you got to put money into the programs to make sure all of this stuff looks nice. Like Mike was saying, you're running track, you know, you don't want to have to be running in December in Virginia outside.
It's a fair point, Mike. It's a fair point. I'm not gonna lie.
No, not at all.
It's a fair point.
I doing it.
Fair point.
In order to get where we're trying to, where you'd want to go there, it's going to take a lot of investment, and it's going to take a lot of Black investment, That's really, everything comes down to dollars and cents at the end of the day. And it's going to take because I don't see why a bunch of white people would just invest in a HBCU. So it's going to take us to lift us up in this case. I mean, at least that's how it's going to have to start.
I would agree. I mean, you're gonna. I'm hoping that Deion Sanders, what he has going on at Jackson State, is going to be useful. I mean, is going to start to really pick that narrative up, because you're going to need that investment. And then also, back to my first statement about coaches recruit with their livelihoods on the line. You got to pay the coaches, because if a coach builds up a program at Hampton, but you're saying your bottom line is, 285, and then Virginia's like, oh, we got 1.4 for you. That's a man with a family, with kids. Who knows? You got kids. You got 3 kids, all with braces.
Yeah. Not to speak ill of Hampton, but I mean, the coach that we had, those teams that I was talking about, where we were winning constantly. That guy, I think that he ended up leaving. He left for a bum school too. I don't even remember. Evansville. Left for Evansville. Anyway, so he left for Evansville, and I believe it was over a contract dispute. I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, it's just.
I said that's why a guy like Deion Sanders is. I said, well, that's why a guy like Deion Sanders is able to coach at Jackson, because Deion's already got money. You know what I'm saying? Now he's just doing it up just for the love. At this point, if Deion was broke and ashy, he wouldn't be there. He'd be somewhere else. He'd definitely be somewhere else coaching and getting that big check. But he can afford to, to not get paid as much money, because he's already got his financial situation is fine. So it might take some things like that, getting former professional athletes that are already established and have money, that don't need a huge check. They can just go there and do it for the love. That may be another route, because I'm pretty sure whoever goes to that school, they gonna know football inside and out messing with Deion Sanders. They'll know the game, and they'll be looked at better because of their coach. And that might be one of the other things that needs to happen.
All right. Well, hey guys, this is an enlightening conversation. Once again, I'm going to direct you to the website, which is www.blackadvancement.com. While you're there, I want you to check out a couple different things, such as the Black Advancement's The Female Voice Zoomcast that we just started this year. They just did their first episode last night. It should be coming to y'all pretty soon. Dope. Also, the Hollywood Zoomcast also just did the second episode yesterday. So that was dope as well. Check those out when you get a chance to on the website. Also, donations. I mean, we're a nonprofit. I mean, come on, give a little. You can't? Okay, this doesn't matter. Okay, another thing that we love to do on our website is inform people of people that they should know. So a Black person that you should know today that we're going to highlight is Fred Shuttlesworth. He lived until 2011. He was born in 1922, and he was the co-founder of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or the SCLC. That's the thing that you usually hear about when you watch those sad old documentaries like Eyes on the Prize and stuff like that. He was one of those dudes. So shout out to Fred Shuttlesworth. He also received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Last but not least, we are a solutions-oriented organization. We don't just talk about stuff. We want to be about stuff. Believe it or not, I mean, there's something that we could actually try to do as a community, if you're out there listening, is perhaps take on the idea that Greg just had, as far as like trying to get people to donate to HBCUs, in terms of like maybe getting somebody to donate stuff for the materials, to be able to track with some of the bigger PWIs, and that way maybe we can make some noise in the sports arena, or not. I mean, that's fair too, but we do other stuff too. We have the credit commandments that we've done before. We have other things such as the Page 57 project. We have our Black to School initiative that we're gonna work on, where we're trying to do things like get more black males within the school system, at least as substitute teachers, and maybe offering tutoring over Zoom, since that's a thing that we can do nowadays. So a bunch of cool, different and cool stuff. With all that being said, thank you all for watching. You can follow us on Facebook at The Black Advancement, on Twitter at Black Advancement, as BLK, on IG at The Black Advancement, or on our website, which is www.blackadvancement.com. For all y'all watching in Streamland, thank you for watching. Shout out to Hampton University. Y'all know what it is. Does anyone else have a shout out to give? It doesn't matter. Oh, well, sorry. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean
All right, The Rock. All right, Rocky.
I didn't mean to step on you. I didn't know.
All right. Okay.
I'm stopping recording.